Hi everyone, it's Ramon Scott, and I've got college opening lines right now coming to you from the Circa, and we'll also take a look at some of the lines from DraftKings, from Bovada, try to measure up and see what we have here as far as early line movement. But we're going to report to you right now these first early moves coming to you for this week's games. Have your rotation schedules ready, and here we go. We're going to start at the top of the board. We're going to go in rotation order and read off the moves here. Thank you for joining me. All right, going to start on Tuesday here with game 301 and 302. Middle Tennessee State at Liberty. Liberty was a 14-point favorite in the DraftKings opener. They've taken Liberty here a little bit on some low limit openers prior to the week. They shut it back down, then they opened back up. They were at 14. Circa opened the game just moments ago at 12, and it was immediately bet up to 13 and a half. The total in Middle Tennessee and Liberty opened 56 and a half, and it is now 56. Pardon my configuration here this week. We'll fix it up here next week. Correction, total opened 56 and a half, and it's now 55. Middle Tennessee State and Liberty. Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State. Western Kentucky was a 6-point favorite earlier at DraftKings. Circa just opened the game up Western Kentucky -9. It was quickly bet to -8. The total opened 59 and a half, and that's where it remains. Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State 59 and a half. Time change here 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Also a time change from 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific is the next one, Southern Miss and South Alabama. DraftKings had it 17. Circa opened at 16. It's since been bet up to 17 and a half. The total opened 47 and a half. It has been bet all the way up to 53 in the Southern Miss South Alabama game. On Wednesday now, Florida International at Sam Houston. Sam Houston, 0-6. They were a 6-point favorite at DraftKings. Circa opened at 4. It has been since bet up there to 5. The total opened 35 and a half, and it is now 40. Time change here to 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, Florida International and Sam. New Mexico State and UTEP. UTEP had this one. DraftKings had this one a pick'em. Circa opened at UTEP 1. It has since moved to New Mexico State -2 at Circa. The total opened 44 and a half. It is now 48. James Marshall and Madison as we move to action here on Thursday. James Madison opened a 4.5-point favorite. Circa opened at 4, and it's still 4 there. So we're looking at 4. We're looking at 4.5. Total opened 55 and a half. It has been bet down to 52 and a half. Rice and Tulsa. Tulsa was a 3-point favorite at DraftKings. Circa opened at 3 and is now 2.5. DraftKings also showed a 3.5 earlier, but it has since moved back to 3. Total opened 53 and a half. It is now 57. Rice and Tulsa is now at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. SMU and Temple. Temple opened an 18-point underdog at DraftKings. They opened an 18-point underdog at Circa. It's still 18. Total opened 55 and a half. It is now 57 and a half. Let's move to Saturday now. Top of the board, 323, 324. Pittsburgh and Wake Forest. DraftKings had this one Wake Forest minus 1.5. Circa opened the game Wake Forest 2. It's still 2 there. Total open 45.5. It has been moved up to 47. Pittsburgh and Wake Forest is now at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Penn State at Ohio State. DraftKings had this one at 4.5 earlier. Circa opened the game 6 for Ohio State. It has been bet down to 5 in this big matchup between undefeated teams. Total open 44.5, and it has been bet up to 48.5. Ohio State's Henderson questionable for that one. Clemson and Miami. Clemson opened a 3-point favorite at DraftKings. It moved to 3.5. It's since been moved back down to 3.
Final.
Circa opened the game 3. Still 3. Total open 49.5. It has since moved to 50. Virginia and North Carolina. This one opened 21. This one opened 21 at Circa. It's now since been bet up to 23.5. The total here opened 55.5. It's still 55.5. Virginia, North Carolina, 12:30 Eastern. 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Time change. Boston College and Georgia Tech. DraftKings opened this one 6.5. It's since moved to 5. Circa opened the game 4, and it moved up to 4.5. So you're looking at 4.5 or 5 here for Georgia Tech. Total open 55.5. It is now 58. Baylor and Cincinnati. Cincinnati opened a 1-point favorite. That's where it remains. Total opened 45.5. That has moved all the way to 50.5. South Florida and Connecticut. Circa opened this game at South Florida -1. It's since been bet up to -3 for South Florida. DraftKings has it at 3.5. Total here open 56.5. It is now 57. South Florida and Connecticut. Time change here, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Michigan and Michigan State. DraftKings had this one at 25. Circa opened at 23. It's now up to 24 there. Total open 49.5. It is now 48. Michigan at Michigan State is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Circa opened this game at 2. It is now 3. Total opened 52.5. It is now 49.5. Oklahoma State and West Virginia is at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Duke and Florida State. DraftKings have the game at 15.5. Circa opened it 13. It has since moved to 14 at Circa. 14.5 now at Circa. Total opened 52.5. It is now 49.5. Rutgers and Indiana. Rutgers opened a 3-point favorite. It's now up to 5.5 at Circa. The total opened 40.5. It is now 43.5. Charlotte and East Carolina. Circa opened the game 9. It was moved down to 8. DraftKings has the game 7.5. Total open 41.5. It is now 40. East Carolina favored 7.5 and 40. Charlotte, East Carolina is now at 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific. UTSA and Florida Atlantic. DraftKings opened this game at 1. They are now 2. Circa opened the game 3. It's still 3. Total opened 54.5. The total is now 58. 3.5 point move to the over here. UTSA and Florida Atlantic. Start time now 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Air Force and Navy. Circa opened the game Air Force -9. It's now Air Force -10. Total opened 39.5. It is now 38. Air Force and Navy. UL Monroe at Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern opened a 15-point favorite. It's now 17. Total open 58.5. It is now 58. UL Monroe and Georgia Southern now at 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific. Appalachian State and Old Dominion. Appalachian State opened an 8-point favorite. They are down to 6.5 now. Total opened 48.5. It is now 55. Appalachian State and Old Dominion. Time change here, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Central Michigan and Ball State. Circa opened the game Central Michigan -5. It's now Central Michigan -3.5. Total open 41.5. It is now 44. Central Michigan and Ball State. 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Akron and Bowling Green. Circa opened the game Bowling Green 7. It has since moved to 8. DraftKings has the game at Bowling Green -9. Total open 41.5. It is now 40. Let me correct that. Total open 41.5. It's now 41. Time change here, 2 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, Akron and Bowling Green. Buffalo at Kent State. Buffalo opened a 7-point favorite. They're now an 8-point favorite. The total here opened 43.5. It is now up to 47. Buffalo and Kent State. Now at 12:30 Eastern, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Toledo and Miami of Ohio. This game opened a pick. It's still a pick. Total here opened 47.5. It's now 49.5. Toledo and Miami of Ohio. Game time 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Western Michigan and Ohio. Ohio opened 13. They're up to -15. Total opened 52.5. It is now 51. Wisconsin and Illinois. Wisconsin opened a 2-point favorite. They are now a 3.5-point favorite. Total opened 41.5. It is now 43. Wisconsin and Illinois time change 3:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Eastern Michigan at Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois open an 8-point favorite. They're still an 8-point favorite. Total open 45.5. It's still 45.5. Game time 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific on a time change. Minnesota and Iowa. DraftKings opened this game 5.5. They've since moved to 4.5. Circa opened the game 4. They've since moved to 6. This game certainly will figure to move off a key number there right now, maybe to 5.5, but right now we're seeing a range of 4.5 to 6. Iowa, the favorite here, in the game against Minnesota. Starting the total started at 31 and a half, and it's now 33 and a half. It's moved higher, but a startling number there. Game time 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific, Minnesota and Iowa. Texas Tech and BYU. Texas Tech opened a 2-point favorite. They are now up to a 4.5-point favorite. Total open 51 and a half. It is now 50. Time change here, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. Hawaii at New Mexico. New Mexico opened a pick'em. New Mexico is now favored by 2.5. Total open 59 and a half. It's still 59 and a half. Hawaii and New Mexico, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Colorado State and UNLV. UNLV opened a 7-point favorite. They're now a 7.5-point favorite. Total opened 60 and a half. It is now 61 and a half. Colorado State and UNLV at 7 Eastern and 4 Pacific. Nevada at San Diego State. San Diego State opened a 12-point favorite. They're still a 12-point favorite. Total opened 44 and a half. It is now 49 and a half. Nevada and San Diego State is now at 9 Eastern and 6 Pacific. UCLA and Stanford. UCLA opened a 14-point favorite. They're now a 16.5-point favorite on the road here at Stanford. Total open 57.5, down to 55. UCLA and Stanford is now at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Utah at USC. USC opened a 4-point favorite. They are now a 5-point favorite. Total open 55.5, and it is now 56. Utah and USC is now at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Arizona State at Washington. Circa opened this game. DraftKings opened this game 28.5. It has since been bet down to 27.5. Circa opened the game 23. That's now 27.5. Total open 56.5. It is now 59. Arizona State and Washington is now at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Washington State at Oregon. Oregon opened an 18. DraftKings opened Oregon 16.5. Circa opened Oregon 18. It has since been bet up to 20 at Circa and 18.5 at DraftKings. So the move is on Oregon. Circa's line is slightly higher at this point. Nonetheless, it's moved a 1.5 or 2 points at either book. And that time changes now at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Utah State at San Jose State. San Jose State opened a 4-point favorite. They are now a 6-point favorite. Total opened 63.5. It is now 66.5. Utah State and San Jose State is now at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Central Florida at Oklahoma. DraftKings opened the game Oklahoma 18.5. They are down to 18. Circa opened the game 17. It's now up to 19. So we're just looking at somewhere around 18.5 here for Central Florida and Oklahoma. Total opened 59.5. It is now 63.5. Time change here to noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Central Florida and Oklahoma. Coastal Carolina at Arkansas State. This game is off the board. There are injury concerns here with this game, with Coastal Carolina quarterback JT Shrout questionable for the game. Texas and Houston. Houston opened a 20-point underdog here at Circa, and it has been since bet up to Texas minus 22. Total open 64.5. It is down to 62.5. Texas and Houston is now at 4 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Mississippi State and Arkansas. Arkansas opened a 9-point favorite at Circa. They opened 7 at DraftKings and were bet up to 7.5. At Circa, they opened 9 and are bet down to 7.5. That's what we're looking at right here, 7.5 market wide. Mississippi State, Arkansas now at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. TCU at Kansas State. DraftKings opened at Kansas State minus 8.5 and it has been since bet down to 7.5. Circa opened the game Kansas State 6 and has been bet to 7.5. They met right in the middle. Total here opened 54.5 and has been since bet up to 57. Time change here for TCU and Kansas, 7 Eastern and 4 Pacific. Tennessee and Alabama. Alabama opened a 10-point favorite. They have been bet down to an 8-point favorite against Tennessee. Total here opened 46.5. It's been bet up to 48. Memphis and UAB. Memphis opened a 3-point favorite. They've since been bet up to 4. DraftKings opened them 4.5, and they're still 4.5. So Memphis 4, 4.5. Time change here. Memphis and UAB noon Eastern and 9 Pacific. Mississippi and Auburn. Mississippi opened 4 at DraftKings. They've since been bet up to 5.5 there. At Circa, they opened at 5. They're now at 6.5. Get on it now. Mississippi here looks like I'm not telling you to get on it, but I'm saying it's a runaway favorite here just slightly. Total opened 54.5 in Mississippi and Auburn and is now 56. And Mississippi and Auburn is now at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Georgia State and Louisiana. Louisiana opened a 1-point favorite. They are now a 2.5-point favorite. Total open 52.5. It's now 58. Georgia State and UL Lafayette. Time change here to 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Northwestern at Nebraska. Northwestern and Nebraska. Nebraska opened a 10-point favorite here at Circa. They opened 11 at DraftKings. They've been bet up to 13.5 at Circa. Nebraska 13.5 at home against Northwestern. Total open 44.5. It's now 44. South Carolina and Missouri. DraftKings opened the game 6. Circa opened the game 8. It's been bet down to 7. And that's where it sits right now. Total opened 56.5. It is now 58. Couple more here. Then we'll go back around for the last late changes here. North Texas and Tulane. Tulane opened minus 20. They're still minus 20, although DraftKings opened them 19, and that's where they stand. Total open 50. 58.5. It is now 61.5. North Texas and Tulane. Army and LSU. LSU opened a 25-point favorite at Circa. It has been since bet up to minus 30. DraftKings opened at 29. Circa thinks they're all that. They're way off, but they adjust quickly, I guess. Like to get their opinion on some of on why that occurs to the crew over there. LSU opened 25. They're up to 30 now. Total here opened 53.5. It is now 58. Army and LSU is now at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Okay, let's just go back to the top of the and just find any other movers or corrections here that might have come out. So just bear with me a little bit. There'll be a little bit of pause as I kind of glance down, give a cursory glance here a little bit to the lines and see if there's changes, significant changes, I would say, that I could alert you to. For example, if we start at the top, 303, 304. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, we reported you the total at 59.5. It is now 61. Southern Miss and South Alabama is up a half a point to 53.5. New Mexico State and UTEP, this total is up to 49.5. We reported the opener at 48, 4.5 up to 48, now 49.5. Penn State and Ohio State, we're seeing that open up also offshore here, 4.5. Seeing the offshore numbers come out too. We keep an eye on that. Here we go. Down the board on Saturday, not seeing as many changes maybe as in weeks prior. Here's Virginia, North Carolina. Total was 55. It is now 56. Baylor and Cincinnati, that total we said went from 45.5 to 50.5, and now it's 52. Boston College and Georgia Tech, we reported earlier it was 55.5 down to 55, and now it's 57.5. Oklahoma State and West Virginia we said it went from 52.5 to 49, but now it's back up to 51. Final. All right, I'm going to get you guys out of here, I think, unless I see anything totally earth-shattering here. Pretty steady here on a lot of these numbers currently, so we'll catch up with you again with morning's team tomorrow. Join me as we have live programming tomorrow on the Tony's Picks channel. I'll be here at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. I'll preview maybe even a couple of these college games, talk NFL Monday Night Football, Major League Baseball playoffs, and NHL hockey. And let's see here. All right. Just Buffalo's up to 8.5 against Kent. It was 7, moved to 8, now 8.5. Miami of Ohio has moved to a 1-point favorite against Toledo. That game opened pick'em. Ohio moves to 15.5 now. It opened 13, moved to 15, now 15.5 against Western Michigan. Wisconsin's on the move here a little bit against Illinois. We reported it open at 2. It's now 3.5. It's now 4 at Circa. It's now 5 at DraftKings. DraftKings opened at 6 and it came back down to 5. So I think we're looking right in there, probably 4.5 right now for Wisconsin on the road at Illinois. But Wisconsin looks like a bit of a mover there. Northern Illinois, we had it opening 8 and staying there, but now Northern Illinois is an 11-point favorite against Eastern Michigan. That Iowa Minnesota total that went all the way up to 33.5 bought back down to 32. Texas Tech, maybe a little bit of buyback here at DraftKings. We said it was up to 4.5 at Circa, but it's down to 3.5 at DraftKings. Total, though, currently at 52 now, off of a low of 51. San Diego State's moved to a 13 or 13.5 point favorite. 13.5 at Circa, 13 at DraftKings. We said it opened 12. Washington State at Oregon. See at 18 now. Here's Coastal. Let's see here. We got the Coastal Carolina Arkansas State game that I had mentioned was off the board. Well, DraftKings has opened it, and they opened it at Coastal Carolina minus 10 on the road here against Arkansas State. Nothing from Circa. That game remains off the board. Texas and Houston, this total's dropped even further now. We said it was opening 64.5 down to 62.5, now down to 61.5. Mississippi State, that total opened 49.5. It's now 50. The game opened 9. It's now 7. Arkansas 7, total 50 against Mississippi State. Tennessee and Alabama, that one's back up to 9 or 9.5 for Alabama. Memphis and UAB, the total here opened 64.5. It's now 63. Memphis and UAB. Nebraska back down to an 11.5 point favorite at DraftKings. Maybe right this second, there could be a 2 point difference between the two books. You could check it out, but looks like DraftKings is listing right here on my live odds feed at 11.5, and Nebraska is at 13.5. There's possibly about a 2 minute delay between me getting that information and you getting this, but looks like we're trying to settle on a number here in Northwestern and Nebraska. All right, I've got a few other late movers here one more time through, and then we're going to be done because I see a few changes here, and they're on key numbers. So I do want to touch on them a little bit. One is Oklahoma State and West Virginia, where this game is hanging out in the 2.5 and 3 range. So got DraftKings right now has it at 2.5, and Circa has it at 3 for West Virginia. Texas Tech and BYU also hanging around some key numbers, so we're seeing some manipulation there. DraftKings at 3.5, Circa at 4.5. DraftKings has USC now at 4.5 against Utah, and Circa has it at 5. All right, we might have one more here. And then that's it. Back to the NFL. Yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody. Hope you got your lines in or wanted to check, or if you're watching on a replay. These were the initial line moves at the highest early limits offered pretty much in the industry by the gang uptown here in Las Vegas at Circa Sports. Also has some DraftKings and Bovada just comparing lines for this week. The opening line show here on the Tony's Picks YouTube channel. Join me tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, as we kick off our live coverage this week. Also, don't forget, midday plays Monday through Friday at 2 p.m., 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific with Mindy Hahn and Tiffany Mance, and then Tony T with the Pick Dogs crew on the drive-through, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. Get your plays well before the top of the hour every day, Monday through Friday, with the drive through. That's it for me. I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining me, College Opening Lines.